a democratic state. Democracy itself is a political concept on its own. Therefore, generally for the ones that are in primary 4, primary 5 or 6, for them to understand, it is that when you say democracy, it means the power belongs to the people. Okay, and also you should understand that the people are the ones who are responsible to either elect, appoint people that should be in charge of the state itself. So when those things are in existence, then you will deem a nation to be a democratic nation. But extensively, there are times we need to understand that democracy itself and what we call liberal democracy. For over the years, what I have not been sensing is the existence of liberal democracy. And over the years, all the attitude of state authorities, one can characterize to say there is a system of oligarchy that has replaced the system of democracy. Now, what we talk about oligarchy, oligarchy simply means, it is a political concept that simply means power is being held by few people. They dictate the pace, the running of the state. And since time immemorial, Sierra Leone itself, we have a constitutional political concept, which is democracy. That means power must not be held by few people and must not be dictated by few people, but must be held by the people itself. Now, in a liberal democracy, you have what we call participation, you have competition, and then you have liberty. When you have those three factors, then you will deem a state to be a liberal democracy. Because there will be the existence of what we call liberal rights. And in a liberal democracy, the respect, recognitions, the protection of fundamental human rights are seen. They are seen, they are being sensed, they can be felt. That is the liberal democracy. But when you have a system or a political system of where human rights are not being respected and recognized, rule of law not being respected and recognized, the due process of the law not being followed, then that particular state or nation is not a democratic nation. In a practical reality, it cannot be a democratic nation. It can be an oligarchic state, or it can be a despotic state, or it can be an authoritative state where affairs of the people are just being determined by few. There is the absence of consultation, the absence of participation, the absence of competition, the absence of liberty. So, all these ones, you can know that these are characteristics of democratic states, where you have the existence of fundamental human rights. You have the existence of the rule of law. You have the existence of the due process of law. And by extension, participation is being allowed and protected. Competition is being allowed and protected. Liberty is being seen and respected. So these are the characteristics that are very pivotal. They are germane to define a state to be a democratic state.
Even so, you've set the tone to our discussions, and you've mentioned, you made us understand as to what a democratic state is, what an undemocratic state is. You mentioned liberal democracy, in which there should be participation and liberty, and despotic states and authoritative states, wherein powers are being held by just few people. Now, let's come back to Sierra Leone. Where can Sierra Leone sit comfortably with all of those instances you've mentioned above?
Well, in an actual sense, from the literal perspective and constitutional provision, Sierra Leone is a democratic state.
Okay.
But by extension of...
As per law, as per written in black and white.
That is why I'm talking about as per literal policies and constitutional provisions. Sierra Leone is deemed and described to be a democratic state.
So what's the reality?
But when it comes to the practical aspect, it is questionable for Sierra Leone to be a democratic state. It gives one the opinion to describe Sierra Leone of not being a democratic state, maybe of a state that is practicing obligatory system, or a state that is practicing despotism, or a state that is being centered around an authoritative ambit. Because you may see there are unfolding things over the years that those things that are actually in existence will put one in a comfortable situation to form an opinion from the practical reality that Sierra Leone is not a democratic state. Now, we have seen human rights abuses extensively. We have seen where the rule of law not being protected. We have seen where the due process of the law not being followed. Now, before I move, these are the three things now I'm going to analyze so people will understand and see where Sierra Leone finds itself in a comfortable manner.
Because you need to back those, should I say, assumptions, allegations, because no government will want those adjectives to be aligned to their ruling. So let's
that is why I told you that things over the years, there are certain things that are happening will give one an opinion.
Okay.
To form an opinion to describe Sierra Leone in his or her own ways. I have mentioned about the rule of law. I have mentioned about the due process of the law. I have mentioned about fundamental human rights. Now, let us take issues of the rule of law. Over the years, we all know, as per law, we all know the Constitution is the governor. But however, the Constitution has given birth to so many other laws that we call as acts or statutory laws. Okay? Because these are devolved powers from the constitutions to those acts that we are seeing. For instance, let us take Office of the Ombudsman. Office of the Ombudsman is being established by an act of parliament. Simply means, if you want to put a head of that particular institution, you must go through the dictates of the provisions of that act, which is specifically being enacted to establish that institution. If the law says the recruitment for the head of Office of the Ombudsman must come through the board and must not be a direct appointment from the president. And then you have now, you just see the president pronounces to say, you have been appointed to occupy this particular provision, position. You may want to ask yourself, is the due process being followed? Why can the president go through the dictates of the provisions? Are you understanding?
Yes.
If you want to have the head of this institution, go through the statutory mandate. Because there's a difference, most of these acts, sometimes people misunderstand them when it comes to establishment of institutions. You mean recruitment, structures, organogram, as it may be. Now, there's a difference between the pronouncement and that of the appointment. For instance, like the SABC, we can say the president has the right to hire and fire. But there are limitations. Because already the provision in the constitution, it is there that the president has the right to hire and fire. But that particular provisions has devolved its powers to a specific act. And that act is the responsive act that can regulate and manage that provision that the president has the right to hire and fire. Okay, so and that hire and fire has given the SLBC an act that has established the SLBC and says you cannot appoint the DG without the recruitment of the board. So simply means the only power the president has for the SLBC is to do the pronouncement. It is to say it is the board that does the recruitment, and then the board now can now submit to the president that this person is the certified and satisfied individual that is qualified for this. And then the president now cannot do the pronouncement.
So that should be the due process.
That is the due process.
But I'm imagining a case wherein if that ever happened, wherein the board could deny the president's suggestion of someone to take a position. Let's say for the example you made of the boss of, let's say for Star TV, the president say, okay, I nominate Ibrahim Soyi to be the boss of Star TV, and it's up to the board to determine that. I mean, we've not seen a case where the board declined that. I mean, they want to serve the boss. Nobody wants to go against what the president has said.
No, in fact, it should not be the president that should nominate for the board. It should be the board that it comes by an application, not by a nomination. Okay? That is, let's have the distinction. Yeah? It comes by applications. In other words, we can say position, blah, 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 vacancy, we need people, you can apply. And then the successful candidate or applicant, okay, can now be submitted to the president, and then the president can do the announcement. I can tell you categorically clear, like the appointment of the DG at the SLBC is unconstitutional, and it's against the law. That is one. That's the rule of law is not being respected. The issue of office of the ombudsman, that is another one, because the board was dominated by office of the president, which the office of the president ought to have given the priority and the mandate as per law, that the board should come now and say, Mr. President, this is the person. Okay. And then the president can say, okay, I now blah, 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 blah. Are you understanding? Like in the case of SLBC also. We have seen them, like the case of ACC. These are issues we have seen where they were challenged, you know, by legal-minded people about unconstitutional replacement of starting workers. We have seen where all those issues are challenged. So if these things are always in existence or they keep going on, then you yourself will be able to form an opinion, being well equipped about governance issues. You will form an opinion about where Sierra Leone will comfortably find itself. But Sierra Leone is a democratic state, as per law, constitutions, I would say, by policies, by political concept itself. But by the practical aspect, you know, these things is not only now. We have seen so many issues of unconstitutional violations from over decades. We have seen them.
Government in, government out.
We have seen them. One action to another, one action to another. So that puts you in a comfortable position to describe what state you are living in. Are you understanding? Okay, another issues we have seen again. We have seen where human rights violations have been committed, where we are expecting the states to have dealt with the perpetrators. Because if you go after the perpetrators and they are dealt with, then one will never at no point in time form an opinion about our democracy. You will never dare you form an opinion or attempt to make an opinion, because you will know that, no, the tenets of democracies are practical, they are seen. Okay? So I'm comfortable to say I can even go anywhere in the world and say my country is a democratic country where I'm living. Are you understanding? Now, the issue that happened at Pademba Road, up till now we have not seen perpetrators being dealt with. How many years now? We are still looking for those who committed such offenses.
But that was a committee set to investigate.
Have you got the reports?
Yeah, but I mean, if you ask them, they will say they are still investigating.
I mean, how long would you take to investigate such an issue that deals with emergency and urgency? If you want your democratic state to be effective and efficient, you have to consider emergency and urgency. Issues cannot be treated lightly. They must be treated with the utmost seriousness, so you can put your citizens in a comfortable manner. We have not known even who are the people that discharge firearms. Okay? What prompted them to discharge firearms? Up till now, okay, we say investigation is going on. What happened in Lumsa? We still need comprehensive reports about who were the people that discharged firearms. What were the reasons? Who were the people who triggered these issues? Even the citizens. Even when we are talking about justice, we're not only limiting it to authorities, or let me say the police who discharged firearms. Even those that ignited the situation, the ordinary citizens. Once evidence are there, the ordinary citizens are also agents of the said offense, then they can be charged. You know, we have not seen that. We have not seen. What about the issues for Tumbo? What about the issues for 91? What about the issues of Makeni and other places? We are yet to see comprehensive report about who are the people who are being charged to courts. Because not only the ordinary citizens, because most of those issues we can say they were centered around the protest. Don't only go for those that were the protesters. Oh, it's good, but don't only go for them. Also go for those who at the material time it was not timely. The situations were not in any way posing a danger or threat to the security apparatus that were there when they discharged firearms. Because these are the things that you look at, whether negligence was in place, whether recklessness was in place. When you have all of these things, you start charging the right people who have committed offenses induced by themselves or out of malice or out of grudge or out of any other political reasons. Then anyone will be comfortable to say, I think I'm protected. Nobody will just come and arm me and just go free. But what is actually developing now is certain people, when I normally speak with certain people, some they will tell you, I'm not even comfortable to have issues with anyone. Because if I die now, there will be no justice for me. I'm afraid. I cannot even fight for my rights against an authority. Because if that authority does anything bad to me, justice will not be prevailed. So I should sit back. If that authority wants to take an advantage over me or want to take my property, I can just leave that property to go.
Okay, so that's a very